we can't let the political class define our imagination for what's possible. Even if you replace Ruto with someone else, what tells you that Amatiang'i is going to be different than that?
The 2026 annual conference of the Kenyan Nurses Association of America, KNAA, is happening in Baltimore from September 17th through the 19th at the Sheraton Baltimore North Hotel in Towson, Maryland. Early registration is now open at $250 until July 1st. After that, it goes up to $300. Vendor and sponsorship opportunities are also available, but space is limited. Registration details are on your screen, and the links are pinned in the comments and description below. For inquiries, call 848-224-1201 or email info@kenyannursesUSA.org. That's info@kenyannursesUSA.org.
The point I'd make to my brother here is that we can't let the political class define our imagination for what's possible. If the political class tells you, you form a party, we form a party, we run against each other in the election, they are going to win that fight. If Ruto rigs the election and plows everyone in the street who protest that election, what is anybody going to be able to do about that? You know, even if you replace Ruto with someone else, what tells you that Amatiang'i is going to be different than that? Or any of these other people who are members of the political class? What the point we're trying to make is there's a broader question that we are trying to answer, which is how do we replace this system as a whole? How do we push it? Or I understand people feel urgency about Ruto right now because he's killing people and because people are hungry, right? I understand that. But to be able to push away that system altogether takes deeper structural work. You have to build the architecture that's going to be able to deliver that. The best example I could give on the ground here in America, we have an organization called the Democratic Socialists of America. These people have an alternative vision for what they think America should look like. They say it's not going to be a capitalist system. These are questions you can only come up with answers to if you've sat down and had the conversations 625 is having now. They say we don't want it to be capitalist. We want it to be socialist. We want an working people agenda, economic agenda. Once they had come up with that true ideological alignment that cannot be co-opted just because you've been offered some money, the people who are part of it believe in what they're doing. They spent years and years and years organizing, knocking on doors. They built a strong organizational movement that people in my field used to make fun of. But when you see what's happened now, first with Mamdani, then now he's just replaced 3 Congress people in New York. They just elected the mayor of DC as a democratic socialist, something that was unbelievable 5 years ago. It was because they sat down and said, if we just play this game for Democrats, Republicans, me, I'm a Democrat, let me just get in, we're going to lose. Because the powers that be will co-opt, this is their party and they will co-opt it, whatever it is. We need something deeper than that. An ideological realignment. An ideological realignment that people can organize around. So that's what young people are looking to do. It's not just to replace one president, but we're looking for a structure that will actually position us to take on the political class. And I'm not convinced that just building a party in preparation for 2027 is going to do that.
And just to add on to that, I think a great responsibility, I think for even our generation, as Luca always says, I think it's to reimagine what we are used to. I completely understand your perspective that this is what people have had and this is what people are expecting to see in order for them to feel like this movement is doing work, right? We want to see a leader, we want to see organization, we want to see a political party, because that is how we've been conditioned, right? All the way from 1963. There's parties, there's leaders, and that's how leadership happens. But what we want as 625, we don't want to participate in temporary solutions.
Right.
I think everyone is tired of temporary solutions. And we
But
know that
everyone?
at least people who are in 625. I would say personally for me, I will not engage in temporary solutions, even though I know they are critical.
Okay.
Things like, ensuring we're talking about, people's background. But even when we say that, people who have done so many things, former vice president, for example, we know his back, but for some reason there's a kind of amnesia. Ata mukiambiwa when we know he was in government, he was aligned with God, he moves and he rebrands himself, people kind of get some amnesia. But away from that point, my point is that I think at the 625 movement, we want to spend a lot of our resources, which especially time, which is such a finite resource, on long-lasting solutions that even if they take time, they actually create transformative work.
Who are those solutions targeted towards?
It is all people who want change, who recognize it. Some people come. The people come from. I get what you're.
The reason I asked that is because we're trying to see if the people you're targeting, let's call it everyone, are resonating with them.
I get what
that is very important.
I get what you're asking here. Let me say this. You see, if you're an empty vessel, it allows anything to fill that vessel, right? If you're filled with something else, with an ideology, that motivates you beyond. And this is not just, the people who come to us to have these conversations come from all backgrounds. That surprise me even sometimes. They're asking themselves, they're doing the same math, they're saying, if we keep doing this and this and this, it's going to end up with the same result. But how do I make sure me who is here back home, these people who are facing the bullets every day, these people who are organizing the bail funds, because they're in that work every day, they recognize that we need not all of them, but some of them recognize that we need a deeper change than what is being described here. So for them, part of what's historical about this is we had movements like this before. I was telling you about the trade unionists who are very ideological. They had a vision. Those people have delivered so many of the gains that you benefit from and you're talking about every day. And they were not co-opted into the Kenyatta administration, into the Moi administration. People who agitated for change, to see them removed to see the Kapenguria 6 removed from prison, who are very disappointed. People like Makan Singh, a trade unionist, who was one of the main agitators for independence, who we haven't even thought about. His heart was broken when he saw what Kenyatta did. And it was because the moment they stepped into the political equation, they crushed the movement that brought them out in the first place. So when the conversation that folks are having is over here, is of how do we take on the Kenyatta and the Moi and the whatever, but we aren't talking about the ideological backdrop that actually creates a vehicle for lasting change.
Yeah.
And I know your concern, right? Because Kenyans are so conditioned into that kind of engagement, it's hard for them maybe to connect when someone's talking about ideology and
mulinipoteza.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So there's a disconnect
here's
there. And that's why you need time. You need people who can engage, who can be committed to learning. Because once you see the truth of how the world is organized, you won't be as gullible.
So here's my bigger concern.
You won't be as gullible to be co-opted because you understand political forces at their core, you know?